r/Nice Guy Stories by Redmond ETS. I gave the blind date nice guy a chance and regretted it. Small content warning, some mentions of subpar intimacy and nipple pinching. This happened back in 2018. I, 26-year-old black woman, met this nice guy via a blind date with a mutual acquaintance. The acquaintance I likely called my friend at the time, sent me a message about a guy she thought was perfect for me, that she met on Plenty of Fish. We'll call him Devin. She sent me a screenshot of his picture and a message about how he responded to a pic she shared of me. His response was, "Wow, beautiful. I feel she might reject me." I felt a little bad for him and told her to set us up on the date. We agreed to meet at a ramen place. I sent him a message that I had arrived. That's when I saw him, leaning against a beat-up looking car. He was a short, chubby Asian man, none of which bothered me. What did bother me was that he was smoking a cigarette at the time, but it got worse down the line. The first date conversation was awkward, to say the least, and I barely remember anything about it except that he mentioned that he loved to play video games, lived with roommates, and was 420 friendly. I didn't, and still don't, smoke at all, but I knew quite a few people that did, so I shrugged it off as part of compromising and accepting flaws. Little did I know that I would be doing a lot of compromising in this relationship. I knew I could be awkward myself, and all the time we don't make the best first impressions, so I agreed to keep seeing him. Not too long after, I took Devin to the grocery store because he told me his car was giving him trouble. Not a big deal, and it gave me the opportunity to see his house and meet his roommates before we headed to the movies. I carried a bag of stuff in and one of his roommates took me upstairs to show me where to drop it off. When I tell you the red flags were all over the place. My jaw was on the floor with all his clothes, clumps of combed out hair, bottles, chip bags, wads of dollar bills, and all chaos. One part of me wanted to run right then and there, and the other part tried to rationalize by saying, no one is perfect. You have to compromise in relationships. Relationships take work. Yada yada. This cocktail of emotions shot me into what I called a productive rage. I went off on him. I told him to grab some trash bags and we tore through his room, picked up clothes and stripped his bed. His roommates were dying in the other room the whole time. We skipped the movies and went to the nearest laundromat where we washed and folded everything for the rest of the day. He expressed his gratitude and told me I was the best thing that ever happened to him. After finally getting his room in livable condition, he asked me to stay the night since I was obviously exhausted. I barely got any sleep. The bed was a twin. I was on my side, faced and smushed up against the wall. He snored like a chainsaw. And whatever sleep I could get was interrupted because I had to elbow him when he would randomly stop breathing. Nobody is perfect. You must compromise. And lasting relationships take work, I would tell myself. Whenever he asked me to stay over for a hellish night's sleep. Speed round. I hated it when he went to kiss me, especially after smoking. He never bothered to get his car fixed and I would drive Devin to and from work like I was his personal taxi. He got upset whenever I was on my phone and watching videos with any type of feminist themes, saying they were toxic. He wanted me to sit and watch him play video games and disregarded me whenever I asked for games we could both play because I enjoy video games too. Just not with highly sexualized anime themes. He bragged about being a good lover, but latching onto me like an algae-sucking fish on aquarium glass made me think otherwise. He was high the majority of the time. I honestly didn't know until he admitted it to me and asked me to be around him when he wanted to try acid. I still remember the one day he agreed to be sober, and we went out to dinner. I appreciated that day because I felt like I could talk to him authentically. However, at dinner, he admitted to eating an edible before leaving the house, and I saw in real time how it was taking effect as he slowly slipped away from me. Everything came to a head when the trip happened. He wanted me to drive with him to Asheville, North Carolina, to meet his sister who was visiting the States for the first time. Cool. We agreed to split the cost to rent a car and hotel. On the day of, when I was ready to pick up a rental car, he told me that his license was suspended because he stopped paying his car insurance when his car broke down. This meant that he couldn't legally drive. He paid the DMV $500 in fines and thus couldn't help pay for the rental. I had to take my car. I recently finished repairs and maintenance, but I didn't get the chance to test drive it to make sure everything was stable. So, I had to drive 6.5 hours over 400 miles on a wing and a prayer there and back all alone, and I mean alone. He said he would keep me company, but 30 minutes into the trip he fell asleep. Thank God for audiobooks. His sister was nice enough, though I didn't appreciate that the first thing she did when we picked her up from the airport was touch my hair, which was in an afro at the time, and asked me to give her cornrow braids. I don't know how to do those. We stayed for 2 days. I was exhausted getting back after another 6 hours drive. On the way home there was a hurricane approaching our city and one of his friends called and said their house burned down. Devin was rightfully upset, and I offered him to stay at my place until we were able to figure something out. When we arrived to look at the damage, turns out there wasn't any and the whole thing was some sick prank. I was livid and found nothing funny about that at all. But he told me I was overreacting and that his friends simply played a prank. But he loved me for how caring I was, wanting to help him in his time of need. Something was brewing inside of me. I did not know what it was, but I knew my give and take compromising fuse was getting really short. I ended up staying over since the storm was starting. Streets flood quickly here. His roommates went out of town, so we had the house to ourselves. The next morning, we were supposed to make breakfast together. As usual, it turned into a solo activity. He slept in, and when he did wake up, just stood there and stared at me the whole time. Deep breaths. He decided that since I was here, today was the day that he would try his acid trip. I mostly wanted to be left alone and watch My Little Pony, which was my comfort show at the time. He called it stupid, childish, and girly, but at that point, I just didn't care. I was just waiting out the storm and needed to spend some time away from him after that. I guess the acid kicked in because he was talking about how vibrant and colorful everything was. After one episode, he wanted to get up and watch something more manly and less cringy like a horror anime. That sounded like a bad idea. So, I hugged him and tried to convince him to stay and do something I like to do for once. While I was hugging him, he pinched my nipples painfully hard. I pushed him back and was like, "What the hell?" He responded, "You shouldn't have held me like that since I'm super out of it." On this damn strip, he wanted me to witness so badly. I finally had enough. Screw compromising. Relationships take work, but clearly, this one was not working. Hurricane be damned. I packed all my things and drove the F home. I was completely numb the whole process. After being bombarded with half-assed apologies. The "I'll never do it again, I'll quit smoking, and I swear I'm a good guy." My only response was to send him the music video to Can't Raise a Man by K. Michelle. He responded, "I don't see what that has to do with me." I blocked his number and his socials. I told my friend what happened, and she said maybe I should give him a second chance. I no longer talk to her either. I learned to trust my instincts from the get-go after that. It was hard, especially now knowing all this time I was an undiagnosed neurodivergent that had a hard time picking up social cues. Still, I learned what to look out for. Don't give them chances ever. TLDR. Gave a stoner nice guy neckbeard a chance and he wanted me to essentially be his new mom. Never again. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more? Have a nice evening.